Michigan State had just lost 2 in a row. They went on the road to the West Coast, lost at USC, then lost at UCLA, and then come home, and they're down by 14 at halftime against Oregon. Jackson Shelstead got whatever he wanted. Mike, this was the first time that Oregon had looked like the Oregon team that we were hyping up
in Vegas
for probably since Vegas. And then in the second half, Jase Richardson just said, "You know what? I'm taking over. You know what? This is my show. You know what, Tom Izzo? You want to play me 13 minutes a night? Well, watch this. Watch what happens if you're going to give me the ball and let me cook." And I think outside of seeing Dickie V get the reception that he got coming back to the sideline, I think my favorite moment of the day was Jace Richardson hitting, I don't remember who it was, but he hit someone with a snatch back and then crossed them up and then goes and splits 2 people and lays it in with his left hand. And he's running back down court. And you see his dad going absolutely bonkers on the sideline. That was an awesome, awesome college basketball moment. Sparty, 86, Oregon, 74, Mike LaTulip. What do you say?
Yeah, watching them claw back today on multiple occasions. Earlier in the first half, really to start the game, and then the way they opened up that second half on I think a 12-0 run, and then had another 10-0 plus run later in the half. I mean, that's shots, Mike. Kill shot. Yep, kill shot. That's what I grew accustomed to over the years. That's what we all grew accustomed to with Michigan State over the years. Is just when they get that combination, and they didn't have Fears today, who's kind of their pace engine, but still being able to play with pace and defending and rebounding. Like that's what Michigan State's been built on. And you can tell, like when they got it going and Breslin's like that, it's one of the toughest places to play in America. And they end up playing Michigan State, like they end up playing as, one of, if not the toughest team in the Big Ten. And they've showed that this year. That's part of the reason they started off 9-0. But you're right. I mean, the story of the game was Jase Richardson. I mean, that dude's a flat out star. And, I think a lot of MSU fans have been waiting to see him get cut loose a little bit. Now it came with Fears being out of the lineup. I mean, this is a guy today that plays 35 minutes, goes 9 of 13 from the field, 29 points, and he's efficient. He's been efficient all year. He's almost a 50, 40, 90 guy. But he hadn't played over 25 minutes in a game the entire season. And I know it's hard to probably watch that. If you just tuned into Michigan State today and saw that guy, and you're like, wait, he hasn't played over 25 minutes in a single game this year? Yeah. Today was the first game. And so I'm fascinated to see moving forward when Fears comes back into the lineup, because I know Izzo loves Fears, and he should, right? Like he's defensively, what he does pushing the pace, loves Trey Holloman, loves Jay Nakins. Like that's part of the reason it's been less of a, hey, it's, something Jace Richardson isn't doing, and more of, I think, him, I don't want to say favoring, but leaning more into guys that are a little bit older. But man, he broke out in a real way today. And I thought it was cool as hell seeing Jason Richardson on the sideline there. You saw Mo Pete, you saw Mateen Cleaves. Like that's why it's cool seeing when a coach has been there for that long and you get multiple generations of players and all those guys come back. Like Michigan State has done as good a job of that as any team in probably college basketball. And a lot of it's because their coach is still there winning a heck of a lot of games.
It's Jason Richardson's kid. Like Jason Richardson is one of the guys that I associate with Michigan State basketball because he was there when I started falling in love with college basketball, right? And to see him going nuts like any other dad and any other fan watching his son play for Michigan State with
I
the
love
same
that.
coach
like
with him. It was Jeff.
The fact he didn't try to be too cool. The fact he didn't try to be too cool. The fact because you saw where he was sitting. He was sitting like right next to the Michigan State bench when he started like flexing and going crazy. He was like standing in front of the assistants, which was freaking awesome.
Well, because I don't think he expected it, right? I mean, it's this kid's first start. You don't know that Fears isn't going to play, and then your kid goes bananas and goes for. I think Richardson's career high was Jason's was 25. His kid gets 29 tonight. Again, in a game that you just didn't expect. And the kid was just like, so it gave him the ball, right? And like get to the basket whenever he wanted. He shot the hell out of it from three. And again, I think it puts some pressure on maybe some other guys on that team now. Like Jaden Akins was quiet up until the end of that game. And like we've said it for how many years now? Like I want to see it from Jaden Akins over and over and over. And just hasn't been there consistently. You got a lot of different weapons now, especially on the perimeter. Booker didn't play either. He was sick today. So, again, Izzo's got a lot of different dudes. I thought the coolest part was actually him putting his arm around Jase Richardson at the end, saying something to him. And all I could think about was like how cool it is for Tom Izzo to coach father and son here in his career. Like how cool is that? And set the record. He tied the record tonight or today, Bob Knight's record, and he'll break it probably against Indiana of Big Ten wins.
Yeah, good for Tom Izzo there. I just on the point on the guards and Jase Richardson not playing, the only thing that I'll say is part of the reason why Michigan State's been able to function the way that they're functioning, despite the fact that they don't shoot threes at all, is because of what Fears can do, partly defensively and part getting them up the floor, right? Like we saw last year with AJ Hogard and Tyson Walker, what can kind of happen with a very similar Michigan State roster when they're not getting it out and getting it up the floor, when they don't have a guy at the point that kind of is a ball mover. And for as good as Jace Richardson was tonight, the more minutes he plays, the more that ball is kind of going to stick on the perimeter, because that's kind of what he is as a player. So I think that it's nice to have him as a weapon. And I think it's nice to know that when you need him to kind of go off like this, he's capable of doing it. But I understand why Izzo was kind of using him as a 22-minute a game guy, because frankly, they got 10 guys that all play between 16 to 22 minutes. That's just kind of how this team is built, and it's part of why they're successful. And it was fun to see, but I don't expect Jase Richardson to start playing 35 minutes a night here moving forward. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong.